What's up, guys? Welcome back to Roxham TV and also welcome back to Jam Jam Crypto, whichever platform you're watching on. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day wherever you are. As for Bitcoin, it is really on a major rally. Basically, ever since the weekend, we have the I wouldn't call it confirmation from Donald Trump, but at least we have some good news from the US and versus the China deal. At least we're not gonna, US is not gonna charge 100% tariff rates on China. So what's going on? There's so much like back and forth roller coaster when it comes to Donald Trump. And it feels like it really is the bargaining tactics Donald Trump has, because you know what happened 2 weeks ago. We have a Black Friday, and looks like turns out it was a massive opportunity to get into the market to scoop up some BTC. Of course, not financial advice. So, as you know how I do my show, I like to start with a little bit of TA. Look at where Bitcoin is going. Are we full on the Uptober narrative? Because you know we are quite wounded. Like if you actually look at the monthly return, looks like we are actually having a green October so far, because today we are on the 27th of October. So right now we're generating 1.21% in October, but it was very woundedly. And I'm sure if you guys were trading the market back when we have this basically massive crash, so it's not going to be fun. And yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It dropped like from it depends on which exchange you look at, from 122k all the way down to 107k. Right now, looks like give it like 2 weeks and people kind of forget what happened already. So we're going to take a look whether the 4 year cycle is still intact. Well, there's just still a chance that it might be a correction. So, of course, we're gonna analyze both scenarios. Let's also hop on to the hourly chart. We slowly building from the shorter time frame to a higher time frame to see where Bitcoin is heading to. So, right now we are seeing a nice little support trend all the way from 103k and has been building up basically since 17th of October. So it has been quite some time. Right now we're sitting at 115k. Like obviously this like nice little rally. So let's see how much. So 103k to, well, let's take a top. So 116k. So a 12% pump. That's really generous for Bitcoin. So we have this rising support level. And what I'm seeing right now is that, okay, we are basically touching this region. Let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit. So there's this important region that I noticed is like around 114k to 115k. So basically, Bitcoin is trading inside this box, this major resistance, support or resistance level. So all eyes on Bitcoin, whether we manage to actually close above and stay above 115k. So okay, if we zoom closer, literally the uh, past 2 hours, so we have one green candle actually close above this. So that was in 2 o'clock, so literally just like 2 hours ago, 2 o'clock Hong Kong time. What I want to see is that, okay, we quickly got rejected and we go back into this region. What I want to see in order to call it like the strength in Bitcoin's price is that, okay, we go above this region, we retest it. Like instead of going inside this region, we actually retest this as a level of support for us in order to go to the next major resistance. Of course, the next major resistance, let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit. The next major resistance I'm eyeing is, of course, 117 to 118k. That's another critical level we have to watch. The reason why is, of course, prior high is now becoming our future resistance. So like in order for me to, okay, it's completely bullish for a full on mentality, is that we have to test this region instead of like trading inside. 'Cause if you trade inside, it's just like consolidation period, expect more chops. But like in order for me to like the coming hours, I really need to see Bitcoin close about 115K. So basically above this region instead of trading inside or consolidating sideways. Like if we lose this, okay, because we have to consider both scenario, right? So if we lose this rectangle, this nice little range, then of course, like this rising support gonna come back into the level. Maybe we're gonna, I don't know, test like 110K somewhere around that again. But like as a like a professional trader, we have to expect both scenario. Like either way we need to be okay. So that's what makes a good trader. So anyways, like also let's also pull up the RSI because like the RSI is taking up. So let me zoom closer. So the RSI has a nice, again, nice little trend going up as well. So that's another bullish thing I like to notice from the hourly chart. However, one thing I notice is that the RSI has been taking up quite a lot. So actually above 80, so 81 in particular. Usually when we go up like this high in such a short amount of time, like I do expect there's some tiny correction. Maybe we're going to spend some time actually inside this region. Or if we lose this like 114K, then yeah, maybe we're gonna use the upward upward floor as the support level instead. But like I do notice the RSI is ticking up quite a lot. So my speculation for the coming hour or coming hours, at least on the short time frame, okay, you guys get what I mean. So my speculation is that maybe Bitcoin will actually consolidate inside this region for me to think, okay, is strength, like Bitcoin is in control. Because we kind of have to wait for the RSI to reset a little. Right now is it's going a little crazy. So let's wait a little for maybe a few hours for the RSI to completely reset. So that's what I saw on the shorter time frame. Let's go ahead and move on to the daily time frame. So slowly builds up the case. So again, why are we on log scale? So again, for the daily time frame, if we zoom closer, we have been basically on an uptrend since 23rd of October. So that's a really nice pump. We're seeing this rising floor again. So that's like, well, how many days so 4 days in a row. So that's pretty good. So 4 days in a row, we're on an uptrend. And one thing I noticed, maybe quite is a coincidence, because usually gold kind of have a, I'll say a reverse correlation. So gold price and Bitcoin price, like if gold is consolidating or having a tiny correction, then Bitcoin is Bitcoin's time to shine. And what we have seen from the past 5 days is that maybe we have seen a tiny top for gold price. So we reached like $4,300. So that's a new all-time high for gold. But however, if you go to 5 days, like we have been chopping around, there's like a tiny correction from 43 or 45. Wait, how much is it? 43. Okay. 4,300, like kind of like dropped from 4,300. Right now it's trading at 4,000. So maybe that's another coincidence. That's why Bitcoin is trading so much. Another coincidence is like I really how TA is telling you so much, how the charts are telling me so much already. So another thing I noticed is S&P reaching new all-time high. So we're actually at like close to $6,800. So as we know, Bitcoin and S&P, they are closely correlated. Usually when S&P does well, Bitcoin will likely do well as well because Bitcoin is becoming so big, like it's becoming a macro asset and TradFi asset is a multi-trillion dollars worth of market cap. So when S&P is trending so much, like we haven't seen much correction. Like look at this chart. If you zoom out, there isn't much correction on the from the traditional market. So when we are seeing S&P at all-time high, gold consolidating, and on top of that, we look at macro. QT has gonna come to an end very soon. We have confirmation from Jerome Powell at the very least. Some people even say that we're gonna end QT maybe in November, which means in next month. Like if so, that were the case, that would be extremely bullish for the market. Because like okay, QT doesn't necessarily mean printing money because QT and QE, they are entirely different concepts, but at least like we know from the US the balance sheet is no longer shrinking, they're no longer dumping bonds instead. So that's a really bullish signal for the market overall. So on top of that, we have DXY, the DXY, of course. So on the DXY, one interesting thing I noticed is that okay, basically USD, so US dollar has been rising from late 2020 or early 2021, how you call it. So from early 2021 till now, we have this like rising support level. We are actually on the edge of breaking that. So if we actually break out of this support level, do expect like deeper correction for the USD. And again, like DXY and Bitcoin, they have inverse correlation. So usually when DXY is going up a lot, that means like fiat dollar. So USD is rising in value. People might feel that, okay, if I'm holding USD is doing so well already, they kind of trigger a risk off mentality. So if fiat dollars are doing well, why would I put that money into risk on assets like Bitcoin? So this is the inverse correlation that between DXY and also Bitcoin. So what we have seen is, of course, like ever since the rate hike from 2022, we have seen like the USD going pumping like a new all-time high. It's not a new all-time high, but like it's rallying so much. If this is some shitcoin chart, I'll be extremely happy, extremely over the moon. But that was due to the rate hike scenario in the US. But right now, since that we know there are only room to cut rates from the Federal Reserve, so we know that the XY is going to break. So that's another really like in terms of the macro is looking really good. So everything I would say is online. If again, if we the USD break the value, do expect deeper correction in USD, which is again beneficial for Bitcoin. Like I would say the momentum is really building up for BTC. It does really look like the 10th of October, what happened on the Black Friday. Maybe it was just like one incident because Donald Trump tweeted out on Truth Social about some 100% tariff rates, but looks like the issue got solved. And yeah, I mean, I really don't really get the gist why people would think that he was actually going along with 100% tariff rates. Like it actually surprised me when even some of my really advanced traders friend, they were kind of panicked. So I was like, you have been in the market for years. Like, why you guys panic? But maybe he was very emotional because he was one of the people who got liquidated for like more than $100,000. So of course, maybe he was a little bit emotional, and on top of that, he saw the 100% tariff rate. So that's why. But like, because we have been in the market long enough to know that it's really the style Donald Trump is playing right now. Because he usually start with a really massive big number, 100%, or even he went as high as 155%, but he always back off. Why he does that, it obviously it looks like it's just creating some noise in the market. So as a long-term investors, there's really not much to be concerned about, especially for Bitcoin becoming such a huge assets so far. But if you guys are trading leverage or trading short-term contracts, then might be like let's leave it to the professional, like actually professional traders that they know what they're doing. Otherwise, when it comes to leverage or contract tradings or margin trading, like more than 90% of people are losing money. It's really a zero-sum game. So in terms of leverage, I'll just leave it up to the professional. All right, so let's move on to the weekly chart as well. Slowly building up the case. Let me remove the drawing so it's less confusing. All right, so as for the weekly chart, we of course need to bring up the 50-week moving average because that is an indicator that never failed us. All right, so technically, even the market crash on 13th of is it 13th 10th of October, we didn't go to as low as the 50-week moving average because back then we were at like 101 to 102K in terms of the 50-week moving average. So we were still trading above that. But however, we were using the bull market support band. Basically, we dipped below the bull market support band. Like, it's not necessary that, okay, for a correction, we have to visit the 50-week. That's not like a rule, but like what it means is that, okay, if we didn't go as low as the 50-week moving average, like it doesn't take that much momentum or that much time for us to reach new all-time high. That's all it means. But we went close enough. So far, if we zoom out, like there are 3 times that we actually retested the 50-week moving average since 2023. So if we go ahead and zoom out, so how we have confirmation that this is the bull market that we've been longing for after the rate hike. So usually when Bitcoin, we have a weekly candles close above the 50-week for quite consecutive times, then we have confirmation that the bull market has officially started. So okay, when we started, that was like back in February 2023, somewhere around that, or March 2023. So that's actually a breakout. So let's take March 2023. So ever since we have been trading above the 50-week, there were cases that we actually came very close. So here, so we actually retested 1, 2, and 3. So we actually retested the 50-week moving average 3 times ever since the official bull market term. So this time we actually we were trading above that, which is okay. We don't have to trade as low as the 50-week. It just shows the weekly trend very much being defended. That's all. And it will be like extremely stupid, like if we go to a prolonged bear market because of one Donald Trump tweet that we are on a fight with China with 100% or 155% tariff rates, like something crazy. That would be like really insane. One thing I also noticed is the RSI. So another indicator that I find really helpful is that, okay, if we draw the trend line, usually if we go to like around 45 or 44, so somewhere around that. So 45, 44 on the RSI, we will trigger a trend reversal, like a really strong trend reversal. Again, like this is not really the case right now, but okay, let me zoom closer so it's easier to watch. So another indicator to see whether we are entering a bear market or just a reversal is that, okay, on the weekly, if we trade below the 44 on the RSI, this is the magical number when it comes to Bitcoin weekly RSI. So 44. So if we consistently trade below 44, then we have confirmation that it's the bear market. Otherwise, we usually see like a strong reversal, like we touch 44 and then like after like a short period of time, so after like a 2 or 3 candles being closed, weekly candles, we're gonna have a strong reversal. So that's usually the case for Bitcoin. Again, like in 2022, we have like confirmation that, okay, it's officially the bear market. But right now, this is also aligned with the 50-week moving average. So one confirmation we can use as an indicator is, of course, like 50-week moving average and also the RSI. So we touched 44, the magical number on the RSI, back in August 2023. So again, in July 2024, August 2024, and then in March 2025 as well. So right now, I would say like it does have room to go higher. And other reason I will say this is that, okay, if we go ahead and use the 200-week moving average, because usually, okay, how we value whether Bitcoin still has room to go, okay, this is a prediction, I would say. I won't say exactly a number, like how high Bitcoin would go in 2025, but like from TA alone, we know that Bitcoin still has a lot of room to grow. Like I wouldn't say the 6th of October was the cycle top already. Like using TA, so um, how we value and how we see Bitcoin is a little bit pricey or like very undervalued, is really cheap, is that we use the 200-week moving average. So let's take November 2021 as an example. So we have the all-time high of $69,000. So one indicator, one measure we could use is that how deviate we are from the 200-week moving average. So the first tier is like 50%. Like if we deviate like 50% from the 200-week moving average, that means that, okay, Bitcoin is extremely cheap. Like if you see we trading inside this region, like if I ever see that again, I'm gonna sell my house. I'm gonna ape into Bitcoin. Of course, not financial advice. I'm just sharing what I would personally do. So that's the first tier. The second tier is, okay, 100%. So if we see 100% deviation from the 200-week moving average, that means Bitcoin is at fair value. Like, of course, it's not like that cheap, but it's fair. And if we go up to like 150%, that's a little bit pricey. And then, of course, like the fourth tier is 200%, so on and so forth. So what happened back in November 2021 is that we went like 290%, like close to 300% above the 200-week moving average. So if we apply the same route, of course, we have diminishing return, but like if we actually zoom closer, if we apply to today, 2025, right now, 200-week is sitting at $54,000. So at the current price, 114. So it's only like 100% deviation. Like that means is, again, is at a really cheap level. Like apply the diminishing return, because last cycle we did like almost 300% deviation from the 200-week moving average. Okay, let's take it maybe half. Okay, let's say 150%. Like I'll be really surprised if we don't end up seeing $137,000 for Bitcoin in 2025. That's what I see in the chart. But anyways, let me know in the live chat, because I'm watching the comments as I'm doing live stream. So that's for the data. But before we actually move on to the news and what Donald Trump has been saying, creating so much back and forth roller coaster in the market, we're going to take a little break because that's a lot of data to digest. And I'll see you guys in after 3 minutes after the break.
Security matters. Zappo Bank, the only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
So, tell us about your furry friend here. What's his name?
Oh, this? This is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin?
He's not just a cat, he's family.
Quite a name, and I must say, looks quite pampered.
Oh, absolutely. Bitcoin deserves nothing but the best. He's my little prince.
But with such a valuable pet, aren't you afraid of losing him?
Losing Bitcoin? No, it never happened before, so it's not something I worry about. Excuse me for a moment. Bitcoin, stay here, right?
Bitcoin, no! Bitcoin, come on, little buddy, Bitcoin, I need you. Don't go.
All right, legend, welcome back to Roxham TV. As I promised you guys before the break, we're going to do some news analysis. What Donald Trump has been saying and how is the deal with China basically. There's so much back and forth. So it's never a dull day in the Bitcoin market. So the first thing we have is literally just like hours ago before we hop onto the live stream. Then we have this news. So Asia markets and US stock futures rise after US and Chinese officials agree on trade deal framework. So it's very interesting because just a week ago, it looked like we were heading straight into a new trade war. Donald Trump threatened with 100% extra tariffs on all Chinese imports starting on 1st of November. Markets, of course, tanked. Bitcoin crashed to, as we mentioned before the ads, like crashed to like 103K, something like that. But fast forward to today, there has been a sudden turnaround. After weekend talks in Malaysia, so Malaysia, there's an interesting clip that I really want to show you because Donald Trump was having his dance move in Malaysia as Asia trip kicks off. So he was dancing with the people in Malaysia. Yeah, so that's pretty interesting stuff. But like after weekend talks in Malaysia, both sides announced a framework agreement to stop the tariff hike and restart cooperation. Of course, the markets absolutely loved it. Stocks were pumping. Bitcoins again pumped to 116K. The October narrative looks like is live again. Right now we have 1.21%. Very wounded month. We have experienced a lot, but that's how Bitcoin does, right? So how do we get here from rising tension to actually these most two powerful countries in the world actually making a deal? Well, not exactly a deal, but like a framework. So that's a good start, right? So in mid-October, China restricted rare earth exports. So the metals used in everything from iPhones to Bitcoin miners, basically everything electronic. So of course, Donald Trump responded with a massive 100% tariff threat, calling it a national security move. So for those of you who are interested, like basically, this is the tweet that sent Bitcoin to a major correction. Let's just put it that way. That's the Black Friday deal we have because of one tweet. So markets freaked out, like S&P dropped as well. So that's the Nasdaq and crypto. Again, we have like $19 billion liquidation. But then things changed really fast with Donald Trump. So during Donald Trump's Asia trip, the US Treasury Secretary, so Scott Bessent, met China's Vice Premier, so He Lifeng, and talks started to thaw. So by today, 27th of October, both sides announced a path forward. So what's in the deal? This isn't a full peace treaty yet, but it's enough to stop the bleeding for now on. So the framework includes a 6-month tariff truce until May 2026, and also a phased rare earth exports to US companies, $50 billion in US farm and energy purchases by China, because Donald Trump really liked to stress about the soybean. And there's also a joint fentanyl enforcement measures. There's also talk of Donald Trump and Xi Jinping meeting at the APEC next month to finalize a phase two-like deal. Of course, nothing is set in stone, but overall, at least gonna create some breathing room for the market. And as for those crazy 155% tariffs, of course, is totally exaggerating. The real number was always 100% addictive, but looks like even now has been coming to a pause. So, how both sides are framing this, Donald Trump is again calling this a big win and confirmed tariffs are on hold. Scott Bessent said the move revives Chinese soybean and energy purchases and helps US farmers. As for China, Beijing explicitly say both sides reach preliminary consensus on tariff suspension and service sector trade. The message is really clear from Beijing. This is a mutual benefit. It's not a concession. So the foreign minister Wang Yi added a subtle jab, unitary bullying won't last. So clearly, both governments are selling it as a win just to save face. I mean, it makes sense, right? The market, anyways, went really risk on. This just happened again, hours before we hop on the live stream. So Dow futures went up 0.65%, S&P rose 0.7%, so does the Nasdaq climb 0.92%. So the Dow closed about 47,000 for the first time Friday after September's consumer, so CPI report. We're also going to look at the inflation data in a bit because it's Macro Monday. So as for Asia, major stock markets also responded positively to the news. Japan's the Nikkei 225. We cover a little bit on Roxham TV. So recently broke a new all-time high, and then it rose again 1.9% in early hours of trading on Monday. South Korea's jumped 2.4%. Hong Kong Hang Seng Index also trading above 1.28% in early trading hours. So why this matters for Bitcoin? This trade thaw isn't just about tariffs. It affects Bitcoin directly. So just bear with me. So China's easing rare earth supports actually helped chip makers like Bitmain, which is again important for Bitcoin mining hardware. So the supply chain is getting a little bit of breathing room, is relieving in other words. And also when it comes to the investor psychology, market don't like uncertainty. When global fear drops, risk on trades like Bitcoin benefit the most. And this is what we have seen. It's really fully reflected on the Bitcoin price and Bitcoin TA as well. So again, the question becomes, is the Uptober narrative so back on? There's a meme month where Bitcoin usually rallies, but looks like it has been dead, especially after 10th of October, but now it's live again. So I would say, do pay a close attention on 29th of October, which is in 2 days. We know we're gonna have some more rate cuts. People are speculating we're gonna get a 25 basis point cut. Let's also hop onto the poly market. So 98% of people expect that we're going to get a 25 basis point cut. But again, it depends. If on 29th and the Fed came out to say, okay, we're going to cut rates, and it's exactly what the market expected, then I would say it's neutral, maybe a tiny little pump, not too significant. But if Jerome Powell added that there's going to be one rate cut only in the rest of 2025, then the market is going to tank. So it really depends. Like combine this with the trade truce, we've got like a strong setup for the rest of Q4. Like if there's no more surprises, some people are already calling 30K by year end if Donald Trump and Xi Jinping summit goes smoothly. Of course, going back to the deal, like this isn't a full resolution. If talks break down or Taiwan tension rise, tariffs could return really fast. But for now, it's a pivotal de-risking event that re-energize global markets and crypto. So do stay tuned because the next headline out of the APEC summit might decide whether October carries on into November, I would say. All right, so that's the deal between US and China. Let's also hop onto the CPI report, which came out on Friday. So the long delayed September CPI report is finally out. It came in cooler than expected. Inflation rose just 0.3% month over month, missing forecast of 0.4%. So that small miss is actually what makes the difference. Like markets reacted immediately. So risk on mentality flipped so quickly. Stocks were jumping, yields were dropping, and then Bitcoin climbed back to about 112K. That was just 2 days ago on Friday. So before cooling it to 110K range. But here's the twist. Like this data came out during a government shutdown, which means we might not get another CPI report next month in November. So let's actually break it down, like what the latest CPI numbers actually show, how the shutdown affects the data collection, what this means for the Fed's next move, and finally, why Bitcoin traders should really care about this. So let's actually hop onto the details, the breakdowns of the CPI report. So again, like the headline CPI, we rose 0.3% month over month, and for year over year is 3%. And as for core CPI, of course, it means excluding food and energy because those are more volatile. We have a 0.2% month over month increase and also 3% year over year increase, which is actually the slowest monthly pace since May 2025. So what this means is that inflation is cooling, but it's still sticky, especially in services and housing. Because if we actually scroll down and we look at the breakdowns of the number, like the first one we have to pay close attention is, of course, shelter, because shelter makes up over 1/3 of the CPI. And as of this month, we rose like 0.2 month over month. And also in terms of year over year, we rose like 3.6%. Still the biggest driver. And then the second one we have to pay close attention is energy, of course. Like energy jumped like 1.5% month over month, mostly because of gasoline, because gasoline has been going up pretty bad, like 4.1% this month. Um, this might be short-term volatility. And then the last one we have to look at is food. Like food prices rose just 0.2% lower than the previous month. Like previously we got like 0.5%, which is quite concerning. So long story short, like what this detail of the breakdowns of the CPI is that, okay, goods inflation is fading, but services like rent, healthcare, travel are still very much holding very firm. So another question people were asking, because since that we are still on a government shutdown, is this data reliable? So the government shutdown started on 1st of October. So this CPI report is actually accurate because it was collected before the shutdown. But the next one, that's where things get messy because the BLS said the October CPI data can't be collected, meaning the November report could be skipped or incomplete. This is the first time since 1913. And if we also hop on to Polymarket, let's see what people has been expecting when it comes to the shutdown. So when will the government shutdown end? 50% of people expect that there's going to be like after 16th of November. So there's still going to be like weeks to come, which is not fun. And then the White House also confirmed it's unlikely we will see another CPI update until the shutdown ends. So while these numbers look solid, the Fed might soon be flying blind without new inflation data. What it means is that, okay, one analogy I love to use is that the car is still driving, still moving, but it's so foggy that you can't really see the direction. So the Fed is almost like guessing where the economy is going without this data. All right, so as for the government shutdown, like we are on day 27, and Congress still hasn't passed a funding deal, and programs like SNAP benefits are already delayed. The Senate went home without agreement, and there's little chance of reopening before mid November. This again adds uncertainty for the markets, not because of the CPI itself, but because it blocks new data the Fed needs for the next steps. So how you read this like CPI miss, of course the market like it a lot because it further pushed the odds of the FOMC meeting on 29th of October. We're gonna get at least a 25 basis point cut. So that's why the market is reacting very positively ever since the CPI report came out on Friday. And again, like what this means is we're going to have weaker dollar and lower yields, push more investors into risk assets like BTC. And with the Fed likely to cut rate in 2 days, the October narrative looks like it's still alive after all. So I won't be surprised that we're going to see at least a positive number. Like though the percentage wise, like how high we go, maybe it's not as best as the previous Octobers we have been getting, but like at least, hey, we're ending up with a positive number. So what more you could ask for? Anyways, there are key dates we need to watch out for. So of course, in 2 days, we have the FOMC meeting. Do expect we're going to get a 25 basis point cut. But do stay tuned. Like if Jerome Powell is saying this is going to be the last cut in 2025, the market is going to tank. So be very cautious. And then also the shutdown, like if it extends to November, like again, is going to add so much volatility and uncertainty to the market. And there's going to be a data gap, especially when it comes to the CPI. So do pay attention to that. And as for the breakdown of the CPI, like we know the shelter number, like the rents, if they don't cool by winter, the Fed may actually slow future cuts. So do watch for, in terms of Bitcoin price, 115K, like we were drawing that region, that rectangle earlier when we started the live stream. So do pay attention to that. So far, the CPI, the miss has actually been very beneficial. The Fed is pivoting. Risk assets are back in play. But the shutdown adds uncertainty. So for now, the narrative is very simple. Like cool inflation and also liquidity boost. Of course, it means like Bitcoin going up. So it's bullish time for Bitcoin. October isn't over, I would say. So it might just been heating up so far. All right, so that's for the macro. We did a macro Monday. And then, one thing I forgot to mention is Polymarket. So if you guys are into farming airdrops, Polymarket is having this airdrop. So if you guys are not from the US, because I know like US citizens still can't really use Polymarket. Like if you guys want to use, you need to use a VPN, stuff like that. So if you guys want to farm, do pay attention to Polymarket. Okay, let's move on to the next topic of the day. Bitcoin Treasury. So what we've got here. So Bitcoin Treasury firms now value at less than the BTC holdings amid crumble sentiment. So of course, the first one we think of is MSTR because it's the biggest one. It's a pioneer. So if we actually go to this list, like there are more than 100 companies, 100 Bitcoin Treasury companies on this list. And I'm afraid to break it to you, a lot of these companies are underwater. So they are now worth less than the Bitcoin they hold. Some are trading at just 0.7x to 0.9x the value of the BTC. Meanwhile, Bitcoin miners are doing the opposite. Like they are pivoting to AI data centers, are locking in multi-year revenue contracts. So let's break it down, this list. Who's in trouble, who's adapting, and why the AI pivot might be the smarter long-term play compared to Bitcoin treasury companies. So if we look at this list, actually like 1/3 of these companies, this Bitcoin treasury companies now trade below the BTC holdings value. Like that means investors are paying 80 to 90 cents for every dollar of BTC the company owns. Some call it a really good opportunity, but again, it depends if you have faith in this like Bitcoin treasury companies. I personally, I've been bearish for months actually. I did a deep dive on my own channel, so Jam Crypto, if you guys want to check out my full analysis. But I'm extremely bearish on the whole Bitcoin treasury companies. It does really feels like a bubble. But like as for MSTL, I think it's still gonna be okay. But like I would say 90% of these companies is still not going to be around in the next cycle. All right, so this happened because many firms borrow heavily to buy BTC and now face high interest, weak cash flow, and dilution, so share dilution. The post-halving slowdown and flat BTC price around, we crashed to 103K, right? It also exposed their balance sheet risk. So one example is actually again Matter Planet. Right now they are trading at 0.99x. I mean, it's below one. It's just below one. It's actually not as bad, but like if you look at other companies on this list, they have been trading below 1x, which is again not ideal. Uh, so why these firms lag behind BTC? Of course, like when it comes to Bitcoin proxy company, like treasury companies, the method of how they raise funds became very vital. For MSTL, they have been using convertible bonds. So that is a interesting strategy because convertible bonds, it could be equity or it could be debt. Like until the maturity date is actually debt, but like once it's mature and if the stocks basically trade above the entry price of the investors, then of course they're going to turn into equity. So MSTL could get away from this is because they have consistent cash flow from the softwares. But since MSTL is the pioneer, is basically how this trend got started, how we have this narrative in the first place in 2025 is because of MicroStrategy. So they have the first mover advantage. As for all these copycats, like I do have my concern, and I've been stressing this for months. Basically, when this trend got so frothy. So the reason why I'll say this, like some of these companies, like they have the debt burdens, like they need to pay 5 to 8% interest on debt used to like the debt used to buy BTC. So flat prices for Bitcoin means rising losses. And like if they don't choose to raise debt, maybe through equity instead, they are running a risk of share dilution. So constant stock issuance weakens BTC per share, hurting investors. So that's what I witnessed in this trend. And many of these companies we are seeing on this list, they don't have a strong core business. What I've been saying, like what I call these companies, they are basically zombie companies. Like they are zombies surviving on borrowed money from the investors. So think about this. If I'm an investor, if I'm trying to buy a Bitcoin treasury companies, the reason why I would give money to these companies because I know that they're going to use my money, my fiat dollars, and invest into Bitcoin. So if I put $1 into a company, they're just going to buy $1 worth of Bitcoin. Why there's like a massive premium? So that massive premium becomes basically fraud. Like it's so frothy. And on top of that, they are zombie companies. Like if you look at the EBIT, like the revenue they're earning, they have been keep losing money. Like Meta Planet is another example, but like again, they are the giant in Asia. They're the first one do it in Asia, so maybe they can get away from this as well. Like same as MicroStrategy. The rest is, I'll say, like for Bitcoin proxy companies, they're running into lots of risk. Basically, they are copycats of what MicroStrategy has been doing. Most of them, like when it comes to the Bitcoin strategy, they are just doing the same thing. So why hold, I don't know, one company instead of the other? I have no idea. So this is one. Another risk that they run into is ETF. So we now have spot Bitcoin ETFs now offer direct exposure with no debt or dilution risk. So why would I hold Bitcoin treasury companies? It does not make sense to me. And in terms of the premium, we do see like a collapse in the premium. So even for strategy, like the biggest, the pioneer, we have talked about this. We have done the TA on Roxham TV. Like we know MicroStrategy in terms of the weekly candles have been trading below the 50-week moving average. Again, that's another weakness sign. Like I really don't see MicroStrategy going back to its previous all-time high in 2025. So that's one thing I noticed. Like as for MicroStrategy, you notice that the Bitcoin they are adding in the balance sheet, like the Bitcoin purchase is getting lower and lower. That's because the premium is shrinking, not only in MicroStrategy, but in the rest of the whole Bitcoin treasury trend as well. So a lot of them are trading below 1x, 1M NAV. And what I noticed, okay, this trend is really dying down. And another really hot narrative right now is that Bitcoin miners company are pivoting to AI. That I feel like is making a lot more sense compared to this like Bitcoin proxy companies. And I'm not just saying now because is not doing so well, but like I have actually been talking about this for months. So, like for Bitcoin treasury firms, like they hold BTC as treasury asset, use equity to buy more, or use that to buy more. But as for Bitcoin miners getting into AI, they are just essentially repurposing the mining infrastructure for AI for HPC workloads. Like it actually makes sense, and a lot of these like Bitcoin miners company, they have secure a long-term contract with giants like Google or Amazon. So that's like consistent cash flow for this like Bitcoin miner companies compared to like BTC treasury companies. They rely heavily on Bitcoin price appreciation. The profitability is a lot lower compared to like some of the Bitcoin miners company. They secure like 25x higher than the mining margins, because we know Bitcoin mining companies, they are a dying business because they're guaranteed to have the revenue cut in half every roughly 4 years. So we have the 4-year cycle still very much in play. So like Bitcoin miners pivoting to AI is making a lot of sense. And it's making a lot of sense for tech giants like Google as well. Because like for Google, if they want to build a data center from scratch, it takes like 3 to 6 years for them to do it. But while investing in a Bitcoin miners company, if they just like repurpose the mining infrastructure, it only takes them like 6 months to do so. So I would say it's a win-win situation for both Bitcoin miners and also for the tech giant, like the AI giant as well. So, anyways, like as for this trend, I'll say like okay, Bitcoin treasuries proved the concept, but like too many became dead loaded zombies. Miners embracing AI may have found the next chapter, I would say, like turning megawatts into mega profits. So the future, I would say, is very clear. Only firms that generate real cash flow will survive the next crypto cycle. All right, so I think we have to wrap right now, or I could have a few more minutes because I still have like one more news. No, okay. All right, so that's pretty much all I can cover in this live stream. Like again, my show is between 4 a.m. Eastern Time to 5 a.m. Eastern Time. So if you want more regular updates from me, make sure to follow me on Twitter. So it's jamjamcrypto_IO. Make sure to follow Roxham TV on Twitter as well, because we have regular updates about the world news, not only about Bitcoin, but macro, but gold, but geopolitics. So make sure to give us a follow on both of the channels. If you enjoy the stream, make sure to hit subscribe and catch the next one live. Every day we connect the dots between global news and digital assets so you can stay ahead of the curve. Wherever you're tuning in or whenever you're tuning in, I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's show.